Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mayhem and Masterplans. This is episode number 0. It's our demo. It's the pilot episode. This is where we figure out if everybody in the cast is going to make it to the season opening, if the whole show is going to make it to the season opening. And that's all from my side. And let's jump in. Let's say hello to everybody, and let's start with Andreas. Hello, Andreas. Who are you? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Hey, I am many things, but here I am the COO of Hypecast. I live in New York City. I'm originally from Germany, and it's freezing outside in New York. -8 degrees today.
Celsius. We're talking Celsius.
Yes, Celsius. Yeah. I don't do the Fahrenheit thing.
And nobody understands the Fahrenheit thing. That's also one thing that is true. Cool. Perfect. Simon, hello, my friend.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Simon. So co-founder of Hype 1000. I'm not sure if it's connected to our business stuff, or is it just three guys randomly talking about free time and hobbies?
That's a good question.
That's what we're going to figure out.
Have you figured that out yet?
I think we can do both. I think we can do both. And that would be the question in general. So I think it's going to be business stuff. It's going to be personal stuff because we all lead very interesting
so it's about our day-to-day life.
It's our day-to-day life, things that we experience, things that we see. Just a small town girl trying to make it in a big world. That's what it is all about. So I'm Max. I'm also one of the co-founders of Hypecast, and so this is the idea of the podcast. That's why we call it Mayhem and Masterplans, because I think Simon and myself we're dads of 2 kids. So while we founded a company, Andreas, you're living in 2 societies, in 2 cultural surroundings. You're transatlantic. You work in many different roles, so I think everybody got some chaos and mayhem in their life. But I think we also are big fans of our great master plans that we have on certain areas. So that's kind of like the idea of the podcast. That's where the name came from, and also I think it's the thing that kind of like, at least for the last 4 or 5 years in my life, kind of like the if I had to pick a motto, it probably would be that, because it's been crazy chaos, building a house, starting a family, starting a company, all that kind of stuff. And if sometimes you feel like you look from the outside, it's like, what is happening? Like, what is he doing? This is all like craziness. But then from an internal perspective going outside, it's like it's this very clear plan. So it kind of like is my personal master plan. But I wanted to check with you guys to see what we want to talk about. And Simon, let's talk with you. What was kind of like the biggest thing that you've been thinking about most for the last week? Think about, like, what did you think about most of, like, or spent most of your time on in the last week? Like, if
in
you think
the last
about
week. So
yeah. And
during
ideally
the week,
you speak into the microphone.
Yeah, during the week, it's all about the work. I was thinking about mainly of deployments I had to do, or important emails I have to answer. And yeah, that's my brain is pretty occupied by my work during the week. And yeah, so it's nothing. I'm not really thinking about other things, to be honest. Or I also thought a bit about the politics going on. So we have now election in Germany, and on Sunday. And I was thinking about, okay, who I wanna give my vote. And yeah, so I think that was the second big thing I thought about last week.
So if you're still thinking about who you want to vote for, and the election is on Sunday, you're not actually physically in Germany right now. So how are you going to get your vote in time?
Yeah, so I have here. I awaiting the UPS driver today. Hopefully, hopefully he will show up. Yeah, so I have already signed my, what is it, letter vote, or how is it called in
Vote by mail. Yeah.
vote by mail here with an express label, UPS. $30 or 30 euros, and for a 24 hours delivery, overnight delivery. Let's see.
That's a small price to pay for a sane
yeah, that's
political setup.
That's exactly. That's was what
I was saying to Simon that to me it seems a bit strange that he only received, like, on Sunday, 23rd of February. That's when the election is happening, and only on Monday, on the 17th, he received his documents to vote. And I've seen that across, like, people that I know that live in Sweden. Or in Denmark, they received it just beginning of the year, of the week. So we're still kind of like mainland Europe. So that's something you can still manage. But there's people in the US, for example.
So I got mine actually on Saturday.
Okay, so how do you do that?
So I used to be. So before I moved to the US, my last address in Germany was in Munich. So I had to fill out. Munich allows you to register online. So I didn't have to mail in a piece of paper to get on the voter registration list. So I did that. They checked it. They then got back to me via email, mind you, very modern, to inform me that everything is right and I'm on the register, but also already kind of informed me that they'll be mailing the paperwork relatively late and I shouldn't be concerned. And then on Saturday it arrived. I read through it. I had made up my mind beforehand already and made my two choices, packaged it up, signed it all. And then the German consulate here in New York City actually had sent out an email to kind of the local German population to inform us that there is a kind of organized express courier service. And if you manage to get your paperwork in to them by 10 a.m. on Monday morning, it'll be included in that courier delivery service. And so they then couriered it over on Monday to Germany. And my guess is it arrived there overnight on Tuesday morning, at which point it was dropped into probably a big bucket for the German Postal Service, which then distributed to all the local
German garbage can.
So, some kind of organized mayhem, if you want. But so far, that worked pretty well for me. I happen to have an appointment early in the morning on Monday, not too far from the German consulate. So I just kind of did a little detour and took a subway, half an hour earlier, and it all worked out.
Such kind of service also exists here in Spain. So the German consulate also have it in Spain, but the consulate was too far away.
But that's the thing. Why can't you just do your voting within, like, that's what I wondered as well. Why can't you just go into the embassy or the consulate and just do your voting there?
I don't know. I'm sure there are legal reasons, right? I mean, the real question is, why can't you just do it online, right?
I don't know. Ask Dominion. No.
It is 2025.
It is very true. Like, you can open up a bank account. You can do all kinds of stuff online. You can do your health membership.
Just ask our friends up in Estonia. They
exactly. They can vote online.
Yeah, I don't know if Estonia specifically, but some of those stories.
There would be a few things that you could manage to do it, like, more easily. But anyway, so yeah, I'm in Germany. I'm the only German here that still lives in Germany. I don't know if that says anything about the situation in Germany, but let's see for how long. No, but I'm going to do the real, like, I turned, like, I did this for the EU vote as well. Like, I go into like the local like voting kind of like what is it, like
Polling station.
Office
polling
or
We
station
call
office?
it a
Yeah,
polling station.
yeah, polling station. I love the German word Wahllokal, because in
Yeah,
the
that
past
suggests that afterwards you can sit down and have a beer, right?
well, and now it's like not now all like it's all like kindergartens and schools. But in the past, like in our hometown, in Simon's, in my hometown, it used to be a bar. So that's
Mhm.
why it was like a bar where you can go
nice.
and vote and sit. That is kind of like they should bring that back because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fun.
yeah.
And I really I hope it's going to be as sunny as it is now, and so I'm going to just it's not too far from where I live, so I can just take a walk with the kids and then go vote and turn it into an experience. So I think it also helps with when you have small kids to kind of like give them that experience that is something exciting, and so get them excited about this is something cool that I can do later on as well. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. So yeah, it kind of occupied my mind as well. But Andreas, what has been like the main thing that occupied your mental capacity in the last week?
There's not one single thing. So I think the things and that is what kind of contributes to my mental mayhem at the moment, if you want to. The fact that it's not just one thing, right? I'm fairly good at compartmentalizing. I'm fairly good at focusing on one thing and then kind of working through that. But so I am so politically, the situation in the U.S. is, let's say, highly problematic. The fact that unelected young techies are roving through the government databases and just basically pulling all kinds of data that they please, and then doing some kind of shenanigans with it. You know, people on posters and demonstrations call it a coup. I don't know if you want to or not do that, but it's definitely unprecedented and it's definitely not okay, right?
It's a coup,
Um,
isn't it?
I, I am tempted to say that. The thing is, um, so that just takes up mental capacity, just following that, and then deciding what to get worked up over and what to kind of, ignore because it doesn't really make much of a difference or it's not the immediately most urgent thing, right? Then, there are at the moment 4 companies that I'm involved in. I'm obviously working with Hypecast, so there's always a little bit of mental capacity that goes to that and to seeing what we're doing here. I have my own consulting firm, which is called Forward Momentum, and we're currently working on a kind of internal service design project where we're kind of improving the service quality and experience for our clients. Um, I am. I have been for the past 2 years. So I come originally from the media and photo world, and for the past 2 years, I've been helping a company, not a company actually, a non-government, a nonprofit organization called Catchlight. Catchlight does some really cool work. They basically we've built up kind of a bundle of services and some tech to allow very small newsrooms, like community newsrooms, community blogs, newspapers in the US, to buy into kind of like partial or a slice of photo desk services. So photo editing, guidance, how to use imagery, how to better illustrate your stories, how to work with photographers and videographers and all that kind of stuff. And so I've been working with them for a year or two, helping them build up some of that capacity. And I'm just in the process of transitioning out of that. But of course, want to make sure that everything that I have in my head is written down, that it is accessible, that the colleagues who are taking over from me are in a good position. And so that's, on my mind too. And then I'm in the process of spinning up a new project with a German company that we're just calling new company right now. Can't talk about the name just yet, but that is a matter of defining how that representation should work, what I would be working on, how I would help them, how the company is structured, and then setting that up. And setting up a company is generally fairly easy. But in this particular case, the company needs to be set up so that it can also, in the future, do business with the U.S. government and potentially security related, or
you might just have to wait a little longer, and then you don't have to worry about that because there won't be any government you have to worry about. You just have to call Elon and ask him if you can just go ahead and do it.
Let's not joke about that. That's. But I mean, this is all joking aside.
I'm living in Germany.
I know.
No, you're right.
But that's the thing. So that is where the mayhem really comes in, right? So setting up, if you have already a running operation that deals with the government, right now, what Musk and his kids are doing there, they're basically killing off companies, right? So by killing off USAID, suddenly the farmers in the Midwest who are growing rice are left without a customer. And they're like, hey, we're growing all this rice, and you guys were supposed to buy $1 billion worth of rice to ship over to somebody who, needs it. And now you're saying you're not buying. What do you mean? You're saying there's not even somebody on the phone who I can call anymore. What the hell?
Yeah, and that is crazy.
This is problematic. This is really
especially like the thing where you don't see, like, they were doing this this section on support in South Africa, ironically.
Yes.
Where they had to shut down operations for like HIV and sexual transmitted diseases, and where they said, like, already from the time they had to shut off the service in South Africa, they know for a fact that 300 babies were born with HIV, that were HIV positive, and those kids generally die within the first year. And then even if you ramp it up again, it's time that it takes to get back to normal. It's already going to be damage done for thousands and maybe 10,000 of people. So it is kind of like mayhem and craziness.
I will say though, and this might not be particularly popular, the approach to figure out what's needed. So what Musk is doing is, in my personal opinion, inappropriate for a government setup. But it is an approach that you can choose to employ in certain kinds of private setups. This idea of turning off a system. So if you're in tech, for example, over the years you build up technical debt, you spin up new systems, and then you're still keeping that old server running for somebody. Somebody is accessing it, but maybe you can't even that fax machine, and you can't even figure out who anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So one way to do that is you turn off the thing and you wait, and then at some point somebody will probably call you and complain and say, hey, we need this thing. And then you can figure out if you just flip the switch, turn it back on while you transition them off, or if you tell them, what are you doing accessing this at all at this time? You're supposed to not anymore, or whatever it might be. Similarly,
and you're very right, and you're very right about that, and it's it is the fact that you shouldn't do that in government, and that brings me to that point where people often say, like, hey, we need experts, like, from the industry working in government, like non-politicians. They're like, no, because you don't want non-business people working in business. It's kind of like always that analogy that I'm trying to do. Not every great football or soccer player is a great coach or a great team manager or the CEO of that football club. So I'm a big fan of having professionals, being politicians as professional bureaucrats, being in those positions and knowing how to navigate a system that has to kind of like cater to so many different needs. And also, so that is the thing where it's not working the way the private sector is working, and very, like, that's a very good point that you made there.
The other thing is, so you can, of course, have political differences about, do you need USAID? Is it useful? Or do you need the, I don't know, CDC? I personally think you do. But again, that's just my view in my experience. If you have a majority of people who are in favor of shutting down USAID, run it through Congress. They
Yeah,
created
exactly.
it. They can bring it down. They can close it again. Then you can wind it down. You can do this properly and appropriately. And yes, it's going to take a little longer, but it also requires that a politician actually puts their name to it. Somebody needs to raise their hand and say, I'm voting in favor of shutting this down. I'm voting in favor of not paying the farmers for their rice anymore. I'm voting in favor of not telling doctors how to fight diseases anymore. And that's what these guys often don't want to do, which brings us back to the mayhem of politics. Yay.
Yeah, I love how you relate the topics back to the theme of the show and what like the name of the show. And yeah, so what have I been occupied with? Thank you for asking, guys.
Clearly,
I
this podcast.
clearly this
Yeah,
podcast, yes. Well, at least about a podcast or what would be the right setting and finding a thing. So I have this. I struggle with having a restless mind, and I sometimes I see it as something that I need to fight against and make sure that it's not that. But then at other points, I feel like, well, if it's more difficult to turn that off than to just use it and channel it, it might be the better idea. So I'm trying to rather have that thing going and having that racing mind in a lot of ways, and then just trying to focus it into the right channels where not opening up too many things, but what can I do with that in the space of, I want to do a podcast, so let's figure something out that we can do that kind of relates to the business as well, that relates to what I do, and also kind of like what we do anyway, where we have our weekly chats about what is going on in the company, in the business, and then also having that view of what is happening around in the world as well. But besides business and besides politics, what is kind of like, Simon, let's get back to you, what is kind of like the thing that you like when you just like as a leisure thing or as a hobby or as something really like to procrastinate or something like that, what is that thing that you go for at the moment?
At the moment, boy, I think either watch football in the TV or yeah, sports. I would say sports or mostly football yeah,
Real football, you mean? American
Soccer.
yeah,
football.
soccer,
Oh.
exactly. No, the real football. So the American
Yeah.
football season is over. So that's also kind of a pity, but yeah. So, but now the hot, yeah, the hot. What is it? The crunch time. Crunch time in the European soccer season is now or is beginning to start. The finals in the Champions League are going to start, and so that's kind of cool. Yesterday, for example, was a very interesting
Game.
game. Yeah,
Bayern Munich playing Celtic Glasgow.
Celtic Glasgow. Yeah, with an what is it,
With a
buzzer
draw.
beater, I would say,
Yeah.
in the last minute. And yeah, so or I spent my time on social media, but not really proud about that. But yeah, so as a father, you don't really have a lot of leisure time a day or throughout the day. So
Oh, you
um,
can have that, but then you are getting into kind of like into a situation that I'm in, where you kind of like where you still get
restless
in
mind.
now, yeah, and also you get into a space where like I still have 2 hours to myself, but you have to kind of like put that into a time where everybody else is not awake, so you're doing that at night from like 12 to 2.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, not very sustainable, I have to say, but that could lead to that. It's like that's the thing that you can do. But so what's the thing that you follow on social media, Or is
To
it
be honest,
just
right now I'm wondering about my Instagram feed. So my Instagram feed is really disturbing, and it's personalized, and yeah, that's really crazy. So yeah, so
What have you clicked on, Simon?
yeah, that's the question. Zuckerberg has announced so that he will tweak the feed a bit, right? The algorithm.
yeah.
And maybe I was in the group or in the cohort where he tested it. So I'm not sure. So I see a
Did
lot.
it just suddenly change without you making a significant?
I would say so. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was. It was.
interesting.
But it was a month ago. I think in fall or
Hmm.
in winter, it
Okay.
suddenly really changed. So now I see a lot of people with strange disease. Yeah, really disturbing content on my feed. Yeah.
Well, good luck getting out of that.
Yeah, yeah,
I think one solution might be to just shutting the damn thing down.
yeah,
There's
right.
actually for photo people to kind of get back to to the photo feed. There's a new app called Photo, Photo, kind of a
Mhm.
reddish icon. They're just now coming out of beta. I've been using it for a while. It's quite nice.
Okay.
And then of course there's a good old Flickr. In all honesty,
Flickr,
that's
yeah.
still going. Yes, Flickr is still going strong. It's
But
a
are you really consuming are you still consuming photos on Instagram, or is it more video content?
Yeah, it's more video, I would say.
nah. For me, it's more photos.
Really?
Hmm?
Okay, so I have to say I do video content as well, and usually Instagram is kind of like the very late TikTok. So
TikTok
if
for old people.
yeah, like you get the same videos on Instagram that you get on TikTok like 6 to 8 weeks later, and now that kind of like Meta and the Zuck kind of turned off the like said like you know what now let's let Mayhem rule again. I can just go to TikTok and just be like yeah so what, right? Everybody like now it doesn't matter, like both sides of the the East and the West are kind of like, fuck democracy. We're just gonna go crazy. So it doesn't matter which platform you kind of like gravitate to consume your content. I would assume, like if you have to kind of like dissonate yourself from like or kind of like keep a distance to what you see and reflect on that. But otherwise, it really doesn't matter in the end.
You know what I find interesting. So let's briefly fold Twitter into that conversation, or X. Um,
Never been on.
I've so speaking of German elections, there's the occasional mention of ooh, Europe needs its own platform, Germany needs its own platform. I don't think Germany needs its own platform, to be honest. But I think it's disingenuous for politicians or for people kind of in a public spot to claim that. But there are, European-driven alternatives. There is Mastodon, for example, and you have great apps for Mastodon. You can build your feeds in a good way. There is not an inherent audience just yet, so you got to work a little harder to get your people on there on your feeds. But it's a good federated platform. So if they were actually serious, the politicians who are currently running, for example, in who are currently in public office, they could have their ministries on these other more European, more appropriate alternative platforms, and yet they choose not to. Right?
But I think
Um,
it's because you're
it's a
going to
bit of a
cater.
chicken and egg question.
I think that is to me it's a very simple logic of you as a politician need to communicate to the masses, right? And on
Sure,
Mastodon, the masses are not on Mastodon. The
I
masses
get
are
that.
on
I get that.
TikTok. They are on
But
Instagram.
if you
So
complain about having
oh
to
yeah,
use X to reach the masses, you at least got to give the masses an option. If you complain about being beholden to an American algorithm or a Chinese algorithm, then you at least got to, give him a response and give him an opportunity to use something else. That's all I'm saying. That's all.
I think it's like that can be a debate for another episode, because what like when people complain about
If it's even worth a debate for us.
well, no, it's like like social media in general, like what the downsides, what the upsides, and like there's so much where people say like, oh, I need to get rid of Instagram, and it's so much better to read a book than to be on Instagram, and there's and should I be on TikTok? Should I be on Instagram? Is X the right platform? Should there be, like the discussion you just came up with, should there be a European alternative? I think it's going to be interesting. Like, to me, it's going to be interesting to see what's the next. Like, there will be a new iteration of some kind of social media platform, I think, because things get boring, and so it's going to be interesting to see where that's going to what's going to happen. And one of the things where we're still missing out is I would say a social media platform from the likes of Google.
Well,
Yeah.
they've tried,
Yeah.
but here, this is an interesting one. And so I've been using an app recently called Mozi, Mozi.
Yeah.
And the thinking behind that, and the kind of the announcement, is that what used to be social networking turned into social media. And once you let that sink in, and once you just look at that sentence and think about it for a little bit,
Yeah, true.
it's absolutely true, right?
Like
and Mozi allows
TikTok
you
to
to
me
kind
is
of
not a
go
social.
back to social networking to actually find people and meet up with them,
Yeah.
which is fantastic. So
I
social media, I
again.
don't find that interesting anymore, to be honest.
Well, and you're very right. To distinguish between social media and social networks is like the one is a consumption platform. So
Correct.
and the other one is the and I think there is a space, like LinkedIn are going the wrong way at the moment into more of a social media platform than a social network. And I think there's potential of we all love consuming stuff, but it gets harder and harder to really have that like interaction globally. So that I tend to really enjoy, to connect with people better. So if somebody comes up with a better way of connecting in a great way,
check out Mozi.
I will do. I'm only on Tinder. No, that's real social
Do you
networking.
still use TikTok, or are you still on TikTok?
Yes, a bit more now. Like I was off TikTok for quite a while, and now I just now go on it a little bit. But yeah, it gets boring. It's kind of like I'm not much. It's not a lot that I consume. I'm gravitating more to YouTube at the moment.
YouTube.
Watch a lot of the late shows. I've watched a lot of live music, and like I said, for YouTube could be interesting. You can watch this on YouTube as well. We're going to upload this to YouTube, so
Very nice.
you might just be watching this on YouTube at the moment.
All right.
While we're talking.
Well,
yes.
Wherever you're watching this, wherever you're consuming this wonderful podcast, thank you for listening.
There you go. So this is kind of like what we're planning. We're going to be talking about things that are in our minds, things that somebody can bring. We're going to see. This is going to be a very fluid and very iterative process of like getting to where we want to get. I think there will be politics in it. There will be sports in it. Ideally, I hope we will talk about music a little bit as well. I think we're all big music fans. Tell us about like what. Oh, that's what we could do. Like, what are you listening? Like, what is the last song you listened to today? Let's finish up with that. So, or any other thoughts? Otherwise, I would say let's close down episode number 0, the pilot, and then we're gonna send it to the guys in Hollywood to see if we made the cut. All right. Anything else? Nothing. Okay. Cool. Then
I haven't actually listened to any song today. I have not listened to any music today yet. It's still
not
early.
today. Okay. Then what was the last song you listened to?
The last song I listened to, let me see, was Bend the Clock by Dream Theater off of their new album.
All right.
So Spotify says my last song I heard was Vara Vara from Simba and Alivi.
Okay.
So it is just some kind of random. It's in the playlist Lo-Fi Boom Bap Vibes 2025.
Okay.
Amazing. Mine was Loving You on My Mind, Chris Stapleton.
Very good.
Very good. That's it for Mayhem and Masterplans. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, guys. And let's meet up back here next week, I would say.
Sounds
All right.
good. Looking forward to it.
Cheers.
Cheers.